Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our read-along of Mr. Scarborough's Family by Anthony Trollope. A read-along and a read-aloud. I am not just going through this book chapter by chapter with you, I am also reading it to you. And this is the story of the eponymous Mr. Scarborough, a sick, dying old man, a landowner, who has decided, upon reviewing the fact that his eldest son, Montjoy Scarborough, has racked up so many gambling debts that when Mr. Scarborough dies and the property descends to Montjoy Scarborough, it will all go to his creditors. Montjoy Scarborough has raised huge amounts of money on the promise that he will inherit Tretton Park, the family's estate. And when that happens, there won't be any money left over for anything else. He's lent more than the estate is worth, more than it will be worth for years. Upon learning that this is the case, Mr. Scarborough takes an unusual step. He provides documents to his lawyer, Mr. Gray, and then to the rest of the world, that Montjoy Scarborough is actually illegitimate. Mr. Scarborough intended him to be the heir to Tretton Park, but that would have been illegal. He was just going to keep that secret to himself, that his eldest son is illegitimate. His second son, Augustus Scarborough, will inherit Tretton Park. This bombshell explodes, and it causes a whole bunch of problems in all sorts of directions, but obviously, the number one people affected, aside from Montjoy, are his creditors. Because Augustus Scarborough doesn't owe them anything. And Mr. Scarborough has never even met them. No, Montjoy Scarborough raised the money that he did on the promise of inheriting the property. He signed all those bills himself. Nobody else did. Nobody else knew anything about it. Mr. Scarborough didn't know money was being raised against Tretton Park. Not that he would have done anything about it, but he didn't know. So those creditors know that if Montjoy Scarborough is successfully made illegitimate, they're out. They've lost all that money. It's gone to him and has vanished into the gambling dens of London and Monte Carlo. And Mr. Scarborough knows that they know that. So he and Mr. Gray, and Mr. Gray's partner, Mr. Barry, propose to them, at the insistence of Augustus Scarborough, who seems to want this matter cleared up before his father dies, that they pay Montjoy's creditors the money that they lent to Montjoy. Just that. Just the principal. Not the interest, not anything that's accrued, nothing but the money. Just that. And that they must be able to prove that they did that. There must be sound paperwork. So you come to Mr. Barry, the lawyer who is handling all of the vetting here, you come to Mr. Barry with a clear evidentiary claim for a certain amount of money, and you will get that amount of money back, not the interest that you would have collected. Because if you don't take that deal, and keep in mind, you're not out anything. Interest isn't real. Money is real. Interest isn't real. It's fantasy calculation. If you don't take that deal, then you don't get anything. Because the person who was raising the money against the estate doesn't have any right to do that. These creditors raise a ruckus. We are told we meet a couple of them. And in this chapter that we're reading today, chapter 36, is called Gurney and Malcomson's. And in this chapter, we meet the creditors. We meet them all together, including, among the number, Mr. Juniper from the last chapter, who is a petty horse groomer who claims that he lent a lot of money to Montjoy Scarborough. Trollope decides to show us all the supervillains together in one room and to get this matter settled. Because we have moved now back to the plot of the book. So I'm going to read you Gurney and Malcomson's. My one quibble is one that I've mentioned already with this book. Trollope, all the moneylenders, almost all the moneylenders, not Mr. Juniper, but almost all the moneylenders are Jews. Certainly the two major moneylenders, Mr. Sherwood and Mr. Hart, are Jews. And Trollope engages in, let's just say, Jewish stereotypes, and the most offensive one of all is that he gives Mr. Hart a kind of Yiddish orthography. He has Mr. Hart speak in a kind of Yiddish patois that I am not going to do. I'm simply not going to read it that way. So if you read the book, you'll see why certain words are misspelled. Because they're Trollope's way of poking fun at what a money-grubbing city Jewish moneylender would sound like. So this is Gurney and Malcomson's. You might be wondering who those two are. You will learn right away. In Red Lion Square, On the first floor of a house in which partakes of the general dinginess of the neighborhood, there are 2 rooms which bear on the outside door the well-sounding names of Gurney and Malcomson. And on the front door of the street are the names of Gurney and Malcomson, showing that the business transacted by Messrs. Gurney and Malcomson outweighs in importance any other considered in the same house. In the first room, which is the smaller of the 2 occupied, sits usually a lad, who passes most of his time in making up and directing circulars, so that a stranger might be led to suppose that the business of Gurney and Malcomson was of an extended nature. But on the occasion on which we are about to allude, the door of the premises was closed, and the boy was kept on alert, posting, or rather delivering, the circulars which were continually issued. This was the place of business affected by Mr. Tyrrwhit, or at any rate one of the firm. Who were Gurney and Malcomson it is not necessary for our chronicle to tell. No Gurney nor Malcomson are then visible, and though part of the business of the firm in which it is to be supposed that Gurney and Malcomson were engaged was greatly discussed, their names on the occasion were never mentioned. In other words, Mr. Tyrrwhit doesn't want to put his name on the door, so he gives these 2 bland, acceptable names instead on the door. A meeting had been called at which the presiding genius was Mr. Tyrrwhit. You might almost be led to believe that, from the manner in which he made himself at home, Mr. Tyrrwhit was Gurney and Malcomson. But there was another there who seemed to be almost as much at home as Mr. Tyrrwhit, and that was Mr. Samuel Hart, whom we last saw when he had unexpectedly made himself known to his friend the captain at Monaco. It's not a friend. Mr. Hart tracks Montjoy Scarborough all the way to Monaco to hound his footsteps for his payment, even though Montjoy Scarborough has nothing to pay him, nothing at all, and he has no right to it. He had a good deal to say for himself, and as he sat during the meeting with his hat on, it is presumed that he was not in awe of his companions. Mr. Juniper was also there. He took a seat at one corner of the table and did not say much. There was also a man who, in speaking of himself and his own affairs, always called himself Evans and Crook. And there was one Spicer, who sat silent for the most part and looked very fierce. In all matters, however, he appeared to agree with Mr. Tyrrwhit. He is specially named, as his interest in the matter discussed was large. There were 3 or 4 others whose affairs were of less moment, though to them they were of intense interest. So all the creditors are here, ringed around this table. These gentlemen assembled were they who had advanced money to Captain Scarborough, and as this was the meeting of the captain's creditors, at which they were to decide whether they would give up their bonds on payment of the sums they had actually advanced, or whether they would stand out till the old squire's death and then go to the law with the owner of the estate. At the moment in which we must be presumed to be introduced, Mr. Tyrrwhit had explained the matter in a nervous, hesitating manner, but still in words sufficiently clear. There is money down, now, if you like to take it, and I'm for taking it. These were the words with which Mr. Tyrrwhit completed his address. Circumstances is different, said the man with the hat on. I don't know much about that, Mr. Hart, said Tyrrwhit. Circumstances is different. I can't help whether you know it or not. Different how? They is different, and that's all about it. It'll perhaps suit you and them other gentlemen to take a percentage. Why does Mr. Hart say the circumstances are different? Well, because he's seen Montjoy Scarborough, and is maybe holding to the idea that Montjoy Scarborough, that when Mr. Scarborough dies, access to Montjoy Scarborough, dealing with him directly, personally, might make a difference. It doesn't in the eyes of the law. But nevertheless, it won't suit Evans and Crook, said the man who represented that firm. I think we can assume here that he, like Mr. Tyrrwhit, is that firm. But perhaps Messrs. Evans and Crook may be willing to save so much of their property, said Mr. Tyrrwhit. They'd like to have what's due 'em. We should all like that, said Spicer, and he gnashed his teeth and shook his head. But we can't get it all, said Tyrrwhit. Speak for yourself, Mr. Tyrrwhit, said Hart. I think I can get mine. This is the most almighty abandoned swindle I've ever met in all my born days. The whole meeting, except Mr. Tyrrwhit, received this assertion with loudly expressed applause. Such a blackguard, dirty, thieving job never was up before my time. I don't know how to talk about it in language as a man isn't ashamed to commit himself to. It's downright robbery. I say so too, said Evans and Crook. What Mr. Scarborough has done is incredibly unusual. But you have to have quite a bit of face to charge someone 50% interest and accuse someone else of highway robbery. By George, continued Mr. Hart, we come forward to help a gentleman in his trouble and to wait for our moneys till the father is dead, and then when he's had our moneys and father turns round and says that his son is a... Well, oh, it is too shocking. I haven't slept since I've heard of it, not a regular night's rest. Here Mr. Juniper scratched his head and looked doubtful, and one or two of the other silent gentlemen scratched their heads. Mrs. Evans and Crook scratched his head. It's a matter on which I would not like to give an opinion one way or another, said Mr. Tyrrwhit. No more wouldn't I, said Spicer. Let every man speak as he finds, continued Hart. That's my belief. I don't mind giving up a little of my claim, just 1,000 or so, for ready cash. The old sinner ought to be dead, and he can't last long. My belief is that when he's gone, I'm so circumstanced I shall get the whole. Whether or no I've gone in for helping the captain with all my savings, I mean to stick to them. I'm so circumstanced. I think Mr. Hart is putting a lot of weight on the fact that he has physical access to Captain Montjoy. And lose everything, said Tyrrwhit. Why don't we go and lug the old sinner into prison, said Evans and Crook. Certainly that's the game, said Juniper, and there was another round of loud acclamation of applause from the entire room. Gentlemen, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't, indeed, said Mr. Tyrrwhit. I don't believe as we do, said Spicer. You can't touch the old gentleman. He owes you nothing, nor have you a scratch of his pen. How are you to lug an old gentleman to prison when he's lying there cut up by the doctors almost to nothing? I don't know that anybody can touch him. The captain perhaps might if the present story be false, and the younger son if the other be true. But then they'd have to prove it. Mr. Gray says that no one can touch him. He's in the swim as much as the rest of them, said Evans and Crook. Of course he is, said Hart, but let everybody speak for himself. I've gone in to earn a heavy stake, honestly. That's all right, said Evans and Crook. And I mean to have it or nothing. Now, Mr. Tyrrwhit, you know a piece of my mind. It's a biggish lot of money. We know what your claim is. It's a smaller claim than Tyrrwhit. But no man knows what the captain got, and I don't mean him to know. It's this kind of duplicity that's the problem here. People are saying one thing and claiming another, and what they gave to Captain Scarborough is different from both of those. About 15,000, came a whisper from someone in the room. That's a lie, said Mr. Hart. There's no getting out of that. It's the gentleman will mind his own concerns, I'll mind mine. Nobody knows, barring the captain, and he like enough forgot. And then nobody's going to know. In other words, he can make up what he wants, the number that he wants. What's written on these 8 bits of paper, everybody may know. And he pulled out a large case or purse, which he carried in his breast coat pocket, a fat sheaf of bills. There are 5,000 written on each of them, and 5,000 on each of them I means to stand out, or I miss. If any gentleman choose to talk to me about ready money, I'll take 2,000 off. I like ready money as much as anybody. We can all say the same as that, Mr. Hart, said Mr. Tyrrwhit. No doubt, and if you think you can get it, I advise you to stick to it. If you thought you could get it, you would say the same. But I should like to get that old man's head between my fists. Wouldn't I punch it? Thief, scoundrel, horrid old man. It ain't for myself that I'm speaking now, because I'm going to get it. It's for humanity at large. This kind of thing violates one's best feelings. Mr. Hart is not working on behalf of humanity at large, but he's again saying over and over again, he's implying over and over again that his situation is different from the others, somehow. Hear, hear, said one of the silent gentlemen. Them's the sentiments of Evans and Crook, said the representative of that firm. They're all our sentiments, of course, said Spicer, but what's the use? Not a hapworth, said Mr. Tyrrwhit. Asking your pardon, Mr. Tyrrwhit, said Mr. Hart, but as this is a meeting of creditors with large amounts of money to deal with, I don't think they ought to part without expressing their opinions in the way of British commerce. I say crucifying be too good for him, Mr. Scarborough. You can't get at him to crucify him. There's no knowing about that, said Mr. Hart. And now, said Mr. Tyrrwhit, drawing out his watch, I expect Augustus Scarborough to call upon us. They can crucify him, said Evans and Crook. It's the old man and neither of his sons who have done it, said Hart. Mr. Scarborough, continued Tyrrwhit, will be here and will expect to learn whether we have accepted his offer. He will be accompanied by Mr. Barry. If one rejects, all reject. Now, before Augustus Scarborough gets here, it's an awkward subject. We've been talking about it. It's an awkward subject, but our conversations have been awkward. I have loved talking about this book with all of you in my emails and in the comments of these videos. And we have batted back and forth. It hasn't come up lately, but now we're square in the thick of it. We've batted back and forth whether or not this is Trollope trafficking in the racial stereotypes of his day for the fun of it, or whether this is Trollope exercising his own racism, his own anti-Semitism. I have always wanted to give this author the benefit of the doubt and said that it's the former and not the latter. But the fact that he has a Jewish money-lender call for crucifixion, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to acquit Tony. So anyway, Mr. Tyrwhitt has repeated, if one rejects, all reject. That's the condition that Augustus Scarborough and his lawyers have put on this. I'm not going to deal with this piecemeal. You all have to sign the paper. Mr. Hart says, not at all. He will not consent to pay anything unless he can get a clean hit of it. He's about to sacrifice a very large sum of money. Sacrifice, said Juniper. Yes, sacrifice, a very large sum of money. His father cannot pay it without his consent. His father may die any day, and then the money will belong altogether to the son. You have, none of you, any claim upon him. It's likely he will think you will have a claim on the estate, not trusting his own father. What does that mean? Well, Mr. Scarborough has already thrown over Mountjoy Scarborough, so nobody knows what he's capable of doing. And Augustus certainly doesn't think that his future is secure unless he gets this handled now, while his father is alive. I wouldn't trust him not half as far as I could see him, though he were twice my father. This again came from Mr. Hart, who was just not settling down. He's not playing ball. I want to explain to these gentlemen how the matter stands. Oh, they understand, said Hart. I'm for securing my own money. It's very hard, after all the risk. I quite agree with Mr. Hart in what he says about the squire. Such a piece of premeditated dishonesty for robbing gentlemen of their property I never before heard. It's awful. Horrid, old man, said Mr. Hart. Just so. But half a loaf is better than no bread. Now here's a list prepared in Mr. Gray's chambers. He's another one that's horrid. On this list we're all down with the sums he says we advanced. Are we to take them? If so, we must sign our names, each to his own figure. Then he passed the list down the table. The men were assembled, all crowded to look at the list, among others Mr. Juniper. He showed his anxiety by the eager way in which he nearly annihilated Messrs. Evans and Crook by leaning over him as he struggled to read the paper. Your name ain't down at all, said Evans and Crook. Then a tremendous oath, very bitter and very wicked, coming from the mouth of Mr. Juniper, most unbefitting a young man engaged to marry a young lady. I tell you he isn't here, said Mr. Evans and Crook, trying to extricate himself. I shall know how to right myself, said Juniper with an oath. Then he walked out of the room. So he's not even on the list. He's not getting anything. Mr. Barry has not only has Mr. Gray refused his permission for his sister's daughter to marry Mr. Juniper, but Mr. Hart has ruled out his claim. You don't have any actual documentation at all. The captain, when he was drunk one night, got a couple of ponies from him. It wasn't a couple at all, and Juniper made to write his name for £500. It was thought that when the squire had been dead the next day, and Juniper would have got a good thing. So Juniper just tried to get in on the action while it was good. It really wasn't anything at all. Scarborough didn't even know what he was doing. He was drunk. I hate them ways, said Mr. Hart. I never deal with a gentleman if he's, to say, drunk. Of course, it comes my way, but I never do. Now there was heard a sound of steps on the stairs, and Mr. Tyrwhitt rose from his chair so as to perform the duty of master of ceremonies to the gentlemen who were expected. Augustus Scarborough entered the room, followed by Mr. Barry. They were received with considerable respect and seated on 2 chairs at Mr. Tyrwhitt's right hand. Gentlemen, you must know that these 2 gentlemen, they are Mr. Augustus Scarborough and Mr. Barry, junior partner in the firm of Gray and Barry. We knows him, said Hart. My client has made a proposition to you, said Mr. Barry. If you will give up your bonds against his brother, which are not worth the paper they are written on, gammon, said Mr. Hart. I will sign checks paying to you the sums of the money written on that list, but you must all agree to accept such sums in liquidation in full. I see you have not signed the paper yet. No time is to be lost. In fact, you must sign it now, or my client will withdraw his offer. Withdraw, will he? Said Hart. Suppose we withdraw. Or does your client think does your client think he's the honestest man that is here? Mr. Barry seemed somewhat abashed by this question. It is not necessary to go into that, Mr. Hart, said he. Mr. Hart laughed long and hard, and all the gentlemen laughed. There was something for them extremely jocose in their occupying, as it were, the other side of the question, and appearing as the honest, injured party. They enjoyed it thoroughly, and Mr. Hart was disposed to make the most of it. No, ain't necessary, is it? There ain't no question of honesty to be asked in this 'ere business. We quite understand that. They're laughing at being villains. Then up and spoke Augustus Scarborough. He rose on his legs, and the very fact of his doing so quieted for a time the exuberant mirth of the party. Gentlemen, Mr. Hart speaks to you of honesty. I am not going to boast of my own. I am here to consent to the expenditure of a very large sum of money for which I am to get nothing, and which, if not paid to you, will all go into my own pocket. Unless you believe that, you wouldn't be here to meet me. We don't believe nothing, said Hart. Mr. Hart, you should let Mr. Scarborough speak, said Tyrwhitt. Very well, let him speak. What are the odds? I do not wish to delay you, nor to delay myself, continued Augustus. I can go, and will go, at once, but I shall not come back. There's no good discussing this matter any longer. Oh, no, not the least. We don't like discussion, do we, Captain? Said Mr. Hart. But you ain't the captain, is you? As there seems to be no intention of signing that document, I shall go, said Augustus. Then Mr. Tyrwhitt took the paper and signed it on the first line with his own name at full length. He wrote his name to a very serious sum of money, but it was less than half what he and the others had expected to receive when the sum was lent. Had that been realized, there would have been no further need for the formalities of Gurney and Malcomson, and that young lad must have found other work to do than the posting of circulars. The whole matter, however, had been much considered, and he signed the document. Mr. Hart's name came next, but he passed it on. I ain't made up my mind yet. Maybe I shall have to call on Mr. Barry. I ain't just consulted my partner. Then the document went down to Mr. Spicer, who signed it, grinning horribly, as did so also Evans and Crook and all the others. They did believe that this was the only way they could get back the money they had advanced. It was a great misfortune, a serious blow, but in this way there was something short of ruin. They knew that Mr. Scarborough was about to pay the money so that he might escape a lawsuit which might go against him, but then they also wished to avoid the necessity of bringing the lawsuit. Looking at the matter all round, we may say that the lawyers were the persons most aggrieved by what was done that morning. They all signed it as they sat there, except Mr. Hart, who passed on it and still wore his hat. You won't agree, Mr. Hart? Said Tyrwhitt. Not yet, I won't. I ain't thought it out. I ain't the same boat as the rest. I'm not afraid of my money. I shall get it, all right. Again, he thinks he's in some sort of special circumstance. Then I may as well go, said Augustus. Don't be in a hurry, Mr. Scarborough, said Tyrwhitt. Things of this kind can't be done just in a moment. But Augustus explained that they must be done in a very few moments if they were to be done at all. It was not his intention to sit there in Gurney and Malcolmson's office discussing the matter with Mr. Hart. Notice of his intention had been given, and they might take his money or leave it. I might also point out here that Augustus Scarborough is saying that it's not his intention to sit here in this room and dicker with Mr. Hart, but you might notice that he hasn't talked to Mr. Hart. Hart has interrupted him a couple of times, challenged him specifically a couple of times, and he hasn't responded at all. He's ignoring Mr. Hart. Just so, Captain, said Mr. Hart, only I believe you ain't the captain. Where's the captain now? I seen him last at Monte Carlo, and he had won a pot of money. He was looking uncommonly well after his little accident in the street with young Annesley. Mr. Tyrwhitt contrived to get all the others out of the room, he remaining there with Hart and Augustus Scarborough and Mr. Barry. And then Hart did sign the document, with altered figures. Only that so much was added to the sum which he agreed to accept, and a similar deduction made from that to which Mr. Tyrwhitt's name was signed. So Tyrwhitt is giving up part of what he gets in order to make Hart sign, because if they don't all sign, none of them get anything. But this was not done without renewed expostulation from the latter gentleman. It was very hard, he said, that all the sacrifice should be made by him. He would be ruined, utterly ruined, by the transaction. The only way that he would be ruined by this transaction, when he's been in business all this time, having lent that money to Montroy Scarborough, you can't be ruined by someone not paying you what doesn't exist. Interest doesn't exist. The only way that he could be ruined if he's borrowed money himself on that interest. But he did sign from the altered sum, and Mr. Hart also signed the paper. Now, Mr. Barry, as the matter is completed, I think I will withdraw, said Augustus. It's £5,000 clean gone out of my pocket, said Hart, and I was very sure as I ever was in my life. There's no better money than the captain's. The captain doesn't have any money. Very well. That's the world. The world's a queer place. So saying, he followed Augustus and Mr. Barry out of the room and left Mr. Tyrwhitt alone in his misery. So that is chapter 36, where we meet all the creditors together, and we learn one important thing. One important thing happens in this chapter, regardless of what Mr. Hart might be thinking about being a special case. He has met Montjoy Scarborough, and the others haven't since he disappeared. Maybe that's all he's thinking about. But regardless of that, the one important thing that happens in this chapter is that that bill is signed. So the Tretton Park estate is going to pay these men, and the estate will be debt-free. The men have signed a paper. They will take this payout. So all the ruin, the potential ruin that Montjoy Scarborough has raised up against his father's estate is now wiped clean. So that is where we stand at the end of this chapter, and we'll move on next time. I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.